It's great to see everyone so early in the morning. When the progressive movement has this many activists that are ready to get out of bed on a Saturday to come together to strategize, to figure out how to improve our work, to figure out how to win power from now until 2020 and beyond, then it really is a good morning. I'm Cole Harrison, Executive Director of Mass Peace Action. I welcome you here today on behalf of our sponsors. The return of the Democratic Party to control of the House of Representatives opens up new possibilities for holding the Trump administration accountable and to block its attacks on labor and working people, its tax cuts for the rich, its sharply increased military spending, its anti-immigrant and xenophobic policies, and its escalated racism, sexism, and attacks on LGBTQ people. But make no mistake what we are up against. This year's election also served to consolidate the Republican Party as a powerful white supremacist, Christian nationalist political force. The reactionary forces that have been unleashed and organized by Trumpism are determined to regain their offensive in the years to come and make it even greater. The far right still controls the presidency, the Senate. It has taken the Supreme Court. It still has the majority of governorships and state legislatures. Less than 24 hours after the polls closed, President Trump declared war on those who dare to hold his administration accountable. Thus, our struggle for decent living standards, social justice, anti-racism, democracy, the environment, and peace now moves into a period of still greater intensity. This is a time to redouble our commitments, our organizing, and our advocacy. But we must not only work harder, but also smarter. Who are our friends? Who are our enemies? The resistance to the reactionaries is divided between the progressives who seek fundamental changes in the economy and the social structure to the benefit of working and oppressed people, and the neoliberals or centrists who seek the stabilization of the corporate order and who accept austerity and militarism. Neoliberals want to use taxpayer dollars to pay companies to provide schools, pay companies to provide housing, pay companies to provide health care, to sell off our bridges and roads to private companies. They even want to privatize the military and the Veterans Administration. Progressives call for social solutions that empower the people of all colors. People, not profits. Centrists see Trump as the problem. We see Trump as a further development of the problems that have always been here. An already dangerous reaction, he's an extremely dangerous reactionary who openly proclaims American racism, sexism, white nationalism, authoritarianism, and imperialism, rather than just using dog whistles, as was done in the past. The centrists are still much more powerful than the progressives. They are organized and experienced. They have ruled for generations. They have immense money and political power. They include the leadership of the Democratic Party. They include the mainstream media. Although we need to join with the centrists to fend off the reactionary assault and to preserve what remains of democracy in this country, we also seek to build an independent, powerful, coherent, and energetic progressive movement that seeks fundamental solutions and that will contend for national power in 2020 and in the years to come. But how do we do this? Among the Democrats who won election to Congress and other offices was a wave of progressive candidates. 20 of the new members in the House have joined the Congressional Progressive Caucus, bringing its numbers to over 90. They represent the best of the movement that is resisting Trumpism. We are inspired by Black Lives Matter, by the 2016 Bernie Sanders campaign, by the Poor People's Campaign, the Women's Marches, the Fight for 15, By Raise Up Massachusetts, the March for Our Lives, the responses to Charlottesville, and the separation of migrant families, there's a tremendous energy in the progressive base. And now we begin to have an echo in the halls of power of progressives. But the progressive wing needs greater clarity and coherence. One major weakness of the progressive wing is the tendency to avoid confronting U.S. militarism, particularly the dangers of nuclear war and of war with Iran, Korea, and Russia. The Pentagon is swallowing the federal budget whole. A solid progressive movement must cut the Pentagon budget deeply to fund domestic programs, and it must break with nationalism and American exceptionalism, returning the U.S. to one country living in respect with all others in the world and not acting as the world's policeman. The goal of this conference is to take stock of the political landscape after the midterm elections, to chart the path towards a unified progressive movement over the coming years, and to educate and motivate our supporters towards the more effective and more unified efforts. So today, John Nichols will lead off with our first keynote address. Then our first issues panel will go into depth on several issues. Then you will have a choice between 10 breakouts, which are described in your packets. I hope you picked up a packet at the registration table. Who doesn't have a packet? All right, most people have packets. When you have a chance, get back to the registration table, grab your packet. The schedules are also posted somewhere. I think on the doors to this space, there's a schedule posted. Then we go to lunch, which is in the basement, one level below where you registered. I also want to mention that all sessions in this room are on the record today. Breakout sessions are also on the record, unless stated otherwise during a specific session. This conference is the fifth in a series of Boston area movement building conferences, which started in 2012. The previous ones were called the Autumn Convergence, Foreign Policy for All, Building Sustainable Security, and the next 4 years, Building Our Movements in Dangerous Times, which was held 2 years ago in the same place. Got a note. Today's conference is brought to you by 7 sponsoring organizations which have been meeting for months to plan it. They're the Massachusetts Peace Action Education Fund, the American Friends Service Committee, the Campaign for Peace, Disarmament, and Common Security, Black Lives Matter Boston, Progressive Democrats of America, Our Revolution Massachusetts, and Progressive Massachusetts. And I'm sure many of you are members of one of those organizations. We also thank the endorsers of today's event. They include the Boston Democratic Socialists of America, Committees of Correspondence for Democracy and Socialism, Greater Boston Physicians for Social Responsibility, Greater Boston Trade Justice, the House of Peace, the Institute for People's Engagement, the North Shore Coalition for Peace and Justice, Progressive Asset Management, United for Justice with Peace, Voter Choice Massachusetts, Watertown Citizens for Peace, Justice, and the Environment, Wolfpack, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and the Community Church of Boston. Thank you for all your support. And many of those organizations have literature downstairs near the registration tables. It's critical that the progressive movement build our own organizations, strong enough to stand on our own and to defend our gains. Please join these organizations and others like them and support them.